And it now gives me kind of pleasure to welcome to the stage Ash Ali. So Ash was the first marketing director at Just Eat. I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let him tell you about his remarkable story. So everyone give a round of applause to Ash.
Thank you, guys. Hello, Birmingham. I was actually born and bred in Birmingham, and I went to the local grammar school in Aston, King Edward's Aston, around the corner from here. So I'm back home, and it's the first time I'm speaking in Birmingham about my insights about Just Eat, and I've gone all over the world to speak about Just Eat and my story. So let's get started. So I'm going to talk about how we built Just Eat from 0 to 1.5 billion. I'm going to share some marketing lessons and some takeaways, no pun intended. Everyone's obviously heard of Just Eat. But before I start, I'm going to start with a big statement. I think it's easy to build a product and a service, but it's very hard to get customers to love you, to trust you, and to buy from you. So traction is really one of the hardest things to do nowadays with any startup, any business, any new product or service that you're creating. I've been lucky because I've been in traction all my life. I'm a growth guy. I've been in marketing, and that's where I've been sitting. So I'm going to share some stories with you around this. So this is my big, bold statement. I think it's easy to build things, really hard to get the traction. So before I start, I'm going to talk about a quick picture of me in my parents' attic in Birmingham, in Smallheath. I was 18 years old, and I was building a website to sell women's shoes online. And everyone was like, no one's going to buy shoes on the internet, Ash. This was back in 1997, 96, right? So I had to learn how to build a website. I had to learn PHP, MySQL, HTML. I had to learn the programming skills. There's no Shopify, no out-of-the-box type of tools, and build it. And it's a really interesting experience because I stuck myself in the attic, and I dropped out of college twice. And coming from a traditional Asian family, there's only 4 things you can do. Either you're a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure, and I was one of those, according to my parents. It's changed now, but so that was me when I was 19 years old, and I sold that company to a colleague of mine who was actually a partner with me. And then I took a rucksack, and I moved to London. And I started working in the world of agency, building and helping other people build websites. And what I realized was that a lot of people were talking about building Flash websites in those days, but not many people were talking about how to get traffic. And I started to get very interested and intrigued in traffic generation. And I started to get into search engines and a bit of email marketing. There was no social media in those days, and very few other types of channels that you could use to market your business. So search was one of my areas that I specialized in. So I started to build up my skills as an expert in search. So I worked in multiple different companies. I built up my skills in SEO, PPC, email marketing, a bit of social, web usability, CRO. And then eventually, I met the founder of Just Eat. And he turned around to me and goes, Ash, you're a kick-ass guy. I want you to work for Just Eat. Initially, I rejected the role. I was like, you haven't got enough restaurants on the platform. Get more restaurants, come back to me. Thank God he did. And I became the first marketing director. That's Rune, David, and myself, looking very young. And I took the role on as the first marketing director. My job was to build a company, build a brand, build the B2B and the B2C side of the business. And during this process, I was involved with raising £10.5 million from Index Ventures, doing the first TV campaign, building the first marketing department, and in 2014, Just Eat IPO'd for 1.5 billion. Now you can imagine how my parents' face looked when they realized this happened, right? And then we did really well after that, and then I started to invest in lots of different companies, and I became an angel investor. I built an online platform for minicabs and taxis. That went to £25 million in revenue. I tried to sell that to Carhu and Addison Lee. That never happened, but it was an interesting experience. I then went off to Dubai and started a company called Washplus, which is the on-demand laundry app, which is quite interesting. We sold that last year and got acquired by one of the largest laundry app suppliers in the UK. And then eventually I decided to write a book. That's my co-author, and that's me taking a photo shoot. How did I ever think I'll be writing a book? I didn't know that. All my life, people have said to me, you can't do this. You can't write a book. You can't be successful. You're a dropout. You're a failure. And I realized that actually you have to really believe in yourself. You have to take your chances and believe in yourself. And I was super lucky through the process as well. IPOs are very rare to have. So I managed to write a book called The Unfair Advantage, and I'm currently the co-founder of a company called Uhubs. And the reason why I founded Uhubs was that I've been angel investing in lots of startups, and I realized there's a massive skills gap with entrepreneurs and digital professionals. So I decided to create a platform where you could learn from experts practical skills and tips through a live stream in a small room, creating an experiential learning environment. We have 2 sessions happening, one tonight and one tomorrow. Check out the online website. You can check out, I think there's a couple of tickets available for that. But anyhow, let's talk about the 5 lessons of growing a startup unicorn. So the first lesson, would everybody here in this room agree with me that students love takeaway? Yeah? Do students love takeaway? Yeah, they do, right? They love a lot of takeaway. And I thought students would be the perfect target audience for Just Eat. So I decided to go after them. Freshers fairs, NUS, spent money around getting them to our platform. Then I very quickly realized something was odd. I started to track my metrics and I realized these students, they keep using our £5 vouchers on our platform, and then they buy the meal deal from the menu, which is £6. So we were making £1 revenue from each student that came to our website. They were quite astute. But everyone thinks that the target market that you have in your head is the one that you should go after straight away, as marketeers, right? So one day, there was a phone call to the office, and it was a disgruntled restaurant owner. He called in, and the PA tapped it into me and said, hey, I started speaking to him, and goes, hey, what's up? And he goes, I'm really upset with Just Eat. I don't like it. You're taking 10% of my money. That's how Just Eat worked. We took 10% of each order that went through the platform. And I don't like you guys. I want to sign off. So what do you mean? Why do you want to sign off? And he started swearing and shouting on the phone. And I was like, let me understand what you're trying to say here. And then eventually he came to the point where he said, there's this man who orders pizza from me, but he lives on top of my shop. I don't want Just Eat. I want him to order from Just Eat. Why can't he just come downstairs and order the pizza? I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So I did something unusual, which most people in tech world aren't doing these days. I picked the phone up, and I found out who that customer was. And I called him, and I said, hey, John, it's Ash Ali, marketing director of Just Eat. I just had a look at your profile. You order from us every week. Thank you for being a loyal customer. And started having a chat with him. Said, hey, how do you like Just Eat, and so on. And goes on. The first thing he said to me was, Ash, your website is really shit. I was like, but you order from us every week. So there's something funny about that, because when you create something that's got a lot of friction and people are still using it, you could be onto something. And so I started chatting to John and finding out more about him and why he's ordering, how he's using this, how he found out about us, and so on. And I said to him, so can I just ask a question? You ordered the pizza from downstairs, and I've just checked Google Maps, and the pin has dropped right on top of the takeaway. You live in the takeaway, according to Google Maps? And he goes, yeah, I can't be bothered to go downstairs because, I'm like, why can't you go bother to go downstairs? And he's like, because I'm the head of a gaming clan, and I'm playing the game, and I'm the head of the gaming clan. I need to be there, so I just open my laptop and just order it from the website. It's like, oh, really? He goes, yeah, I do it every week, and all my mates do it too. Gave me the sparking moment, the aha moment, as they call it. Our first early adopters for Just Eat were gamers, not students. They were the first early adopters. So I then went after the gamers, sponsoring the hackathons, the gaming events, and so on. And that's how we built the first set of customers for Just Eat. Even though the website was not very good, they used it. So the lesson is, know your customer. Really important. Before you do any marketing, you gotta know your customer. Second lesson, takeaway. Just go where your customers are going. So this is a flyer on the left-hand side here. So you're all used to having these menus stuffed to the doors, right, from the takeaways. And what I realized was that when I was sitting down with Index Ventures and they asked me once, who's your competition, Ash, for Just Eat? And I rattled through all the different people. And eventually I came down to one thing and I said it was the telephone. Millions of people today are still ordering their takeaway on the phone. Surprisingly, right? So the telephone was Just Eat's competitor. But then how were people finding the telephone numbers of takeaways? And the standard way of doing that was through a menu or a flyer that came through the door. They'd either stuff it into the top drawer of their kitchen shelf, or they put it on the fridge. They'd have one for an Indian takeaway, one for a Italian takeaway, one for a Chinese, and they'd just pick the phone up and call. And I thought to myself, what do I have that I could be part of this process? So I realized that a lot of these takeaways are printing these menus, and it's costing them £700 to print 10,000 menus. And I thought, what do I have on my platform? I have thousands of restaurants. So if I have thousands of restaurants, what does that mean? That means I have economies of scale. So I approached one of the largest printing companies in UK. And I said to them, hey, guess what? I can bring you 300 clients if you can give me a really good deal on printing 10,000 flyers that they normally do exactly the same. So we were able to get economies of scale, and we were able to get a cheaper price for printing of the menus. But there was one caveat. I wanted to have the Just Eat logo on the menu. So we approached all our restaurants and said, guess what? We're going to save you £300. Do you want to print your menus through us? Exactly the same. But you got to have the Just Eat logo and a URL on the menu. Now, they were distributing those menus, and everywhere in the household, pinned up menu with a Just Eat logo on it. Branding of the simplest kind is very important. Sometimes in the world of tech, we forget this. Then I realized people were going online to Yal and the directory websites. And I was like, so they're going online to directory websites and they're looking for a telephone number. Why don't we do a deal with the directory websites and offer them the ability for consumers to order directly through a link? So then I did an affiliate deal, a partnership deal with Yal and the directory company to say, why don't you put a link next to the telephone number so we can see how many people are actually going to order directly online rather than just use the telephone instead? Do you want to guess what conversion rate we got on those links? 47%. Just by adding a link next to the telephone number in the directory websites, we got 40% conversion rate. The volume wasn't high, but the conversion rate was strong because we were going where customers go. We're on their customer journey. Simple deal, partnership-based. And then finally, a lot of traffic that we were generating was from Google. So us being search guys, we're number one for a lot of key terms. But then Google keeps changing the algorithms, right? You probably know this. So in that time, they changed the algorithm and they started to include this thing called Google Maps listings, universal search. And all the listings that we had were number one, just dropped down. Because now all of a sudden we had those Google local listings. This was back in 2008, 9. I was like, that's, our traffic's going down now. How can we deal with this? So the first thing I tried to do was to try and get our restaurants listed in the Google Maps listings. We tried to do that, and it worked, but then they wanted to have them to be individual restaurants, so we struggled to do that. But then I realized that we had something that Google didn't have, and they were desperate to get it. We had UGC, we had user-generated content, we had reviews of takeaways. And they were desperately wanting to be able to use these reviews and match them up with all the takeaway listings in Google Maps. So I did a deal with Google with our reviews, created an API, and fed in the reviews into Google Maps listings, and in return, we had a citation and a link back to Just Eat. So sometimes we're always running away to find something else, but we always also have the power we had the economies of scale, we had the user-generated content, and utilizing that kind of asset with other companies and other suppliers and partners is a good way to be part of the customer journey. So know where your customers are going and be part of that journey. Be creative. You know, when we started Just Eat, we never had much budget. I know I said we raised £10.5 million, and eventually we had £3.5 million for marketing, and we blew most of that on TV advertising. But in the early days, we had to be creative. So has anyone heard of a soft drinks brand, kind of red color? Coca-Cola, right? So our ex-MD was from Coca-Cola. And the best marketing and branding is done by Coca-Cola. You can never forget it. Even if you go to India or Pakistan or anywhere in the world, there's a shantytown, you'll see a Coca-Cola sign on the wall somewhere, right? They love to do branding. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So we realized that actually when we have all these restaurants, we also have something else. We have the real estate space. We have the restaurants that are working with us. How can we make them part of Just Eat? So we provided them with some indoor merchandise and some stickers that we put on the windows. It was an easy thing to do and very cost effective. Later down the line, we started to create proper outdoor signage when we had more money. But in the early days, a couple of pounds sticker, stick it in the window. Great way for them to be part of Just Eat. But let's do a little competition, a little poll. So I'm going to start from the lowest percentage to the highest. I'm going to give you 3 options. How many customers do you think we got from the in-store merchandise branding and the stickers on the windows? So I'm going to start from 20%. Raise your hand for 20%. Who says 20%? Customers. Okay, 2 people. 40%? Okay, 40%, a few more. More than 50%? Yeah, so more than 50% of our customers in the first year of Just Eat didn't come from some whiz-bang technical outreaching influencer marketing campaign social media thing. They came from stickers in the restaurant window. It became so important for us that we actually set a KPI for our sales guys. You had to have a minimum of 2 stickers per restaurant window, otherwise it doesn't count as a sale. Because we knew how important it was. And then when we had a corner plot, there were 3 stickers. And we had a WhatsApp group where we created with the salespeople. It's like every time they sold a client, it's like, where's the stickers? That's all I cared about. Right, yeah, great, taking pictures, the stickers are on. Now, when you walk down the high street, you see Just Eat everywhere. And it all started from understanding how big companies like Coca-Cola do branding. Your brand is really important. We forget about the brand and we focus too much on the metrics and the numbers in a day and age where we've got lots of tools to use to be able to do that. So that was quite surprising for me in the first year to have that kind of brand effect. Lesson number 4, you got to know your numbers. Too many people are using what I call vanity metrics. How many page impressions they got, how many unique visitors got, how many likes, how many followers, how many downloads. These are all vanity metrics. And in marketing, and in strategic marketing, you need to start to think deeper about your metrics. You've got to understand what are the key drivers and levers of your business growth. In Just Eat, one of the key metrics that I was tracking was lifetime value. How many times are people ordering on a repeat basis? That became what I call a North Star metric. Has anyone heard of North Star metric? It became our North Star metric, the key one metric that I was always tracking. Facebook have daily active users. Airbnb have the number of nights that are booked on the platform. Skyscanner have the average basket size. I was speaking to the head of growth this morning about it, actually, the transaction value. You've got to have one core metric that you all focus on. We call it the North Star metric. But at the same time, don't overwhelm yourself with numbers. Because there's a lot of numbers that people throw around in marketing these days. A lot of vanity numbers. You've got to use both a qualitative approach and a quantitative approach. How do you know when someone loves your service or product? How do you know that? Do you track NPS score? Do you get to know your customers and understand what they're feeling about the product? You as a marketeer or a head of a marketing department need to also use another piece of the puzzle when deciding on how to do things in marketing. And it's called your gut instinct. We have millions of data points in our gut instinct. And we rarely want to talk about it in the meetings, on management meetings, because we think, oh no, it's not right. But we have hunches, and most of the top entrepreneurs that I've ever met who've launched £100 million companies and unicorn companies, and I asked them, how did you get started? Oh, I had a hunch. Never said they did an A/B test. I had a hunch, and then it started from there. And that's when I started to use the data to then prove my assumptions and build on my metrics and my framework. In the early days, it's not too appropriate to use data as your guiding point straight away. Now you're going to say, oh no, everything's going to be data-driven. Why do you think I say that? Does anyone know why? The reason I say that is because if you're making judgment calls on small amounts of data, then you're going to make the wrong calls. When you're starting your marketing campaign, if you've only had 100 clicks and you make a judgment call on it, it's not going to probably be right. You need to make it statistically valid. And you need to use the data in the right way. So when you're a small startup company, when you have limited budgets, if you're just making calls on small amounts of data, you're going to make the wrong decision. You've got to go long term. You've got to think long term. But at the same time, you've got to have your North Star metric. And what I say is that instead of being data-driven, you need to be data-influenced. Use it to influence your decisions. Not just drive what you're doing because it makes sense because you've got a few hundred clicks. And the last lesson, if you're going to build a marketing team or a department or a company that's going to grow, you've got to have people on your team with a growth mindset. People who are willing to experiment, deal with failure, move around obstacles. This is really important because most people are talking about channels and marketing things and so on, what other opportunities they have to get out there to customers. But if your team is not right in the right mindset, it doesn't matter. You're going to struggle all the time. You're going to get people with a fixed mindset. This is not going to work. We can't do this. That's failed, so therefore it's not very good. Having constructive criticism towards marketing channels and trying things and experimenting. And the challenge is to make sure that this starts from the top. It has to start from the top. The Just Eat management team were really growth-orientated. Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, the fastest and biggest accelerator, most well-known accelerator in the world, said that startup equals growth. We're all focused around growth. Not just growth in the numbers and growth in the business, but also personal growth. How are you learning? How are you building your marketing teams? How are you building the team up together to learn new things? And I see this quite often in startups and other companies where experimentation is lacking, or corporate companies where you just can't try things, or you got to convince your boss to do something because they're not growth-minded. They don't have a growth mindset. So the people you work with is really important, and you've got to have people who've got a growth mindset, and that's exactly what we were about. And it's fundamental to the growth of your marketing team and being able to move forward and try things. There were so many failures. We messed up so many times, but we picked ourselves up and we carried on. And we tried lots of new things and we carried on. Yes, we lost money in certain places. Yes, there's times where you can't afford to lose money, but you gotta test, you gotta try. So those are the 5 takeaways. No pun intended, of course. Know thy customer. Go where your customers go. Be creative. know thy numbers, and have a growth culture. But one of the questions I get quite often from a lot of people is, Ash, can you come into my organization and tell me what growth hack you used? Give me some growth hacks. A lot of people do this, right, online. Give me something. And Facebook used something, and Airbnb used something, and Dropbox used something. Give me some growth hacks. It doesn't exist. I coined a new phrase called growth scrapping, and you can read more about it in the book. Basically, growth scrapping is the stage where you roll your sleeves up and actually do the real work, get to know your customers, pick the phone up, meet them face to face. You have to start doing the growth scrapping stage first and get to know who you're dealing with before you start to think about growth hacking. Growth hacking is just about adding fuel to the fire and then accelerating the growth. And a lot of people are jumping to the growth hacks. This is a growth hack. It's not a growth hack, it's just a tactic. And a lot of the growth hacks that happened in the past don't work now. Which is why everything starts off with an unfair advantage. An unfair advantage is speed. An unfair advantage is something that's circumstantial, that's driven from both your business and the team around it, the strengths that you have, to be able to go where you want to go faster. Which is why everything I've just told you, the 5 takeaways, there's some wisdoms and learnings there, but you yourself need to go back to your business and define what your unfair advantage is as a team and as a company. And we can go into a long talk around that, but there's a workshop happening tomorrow if you want to learn about it. There's a couple of tickets available, but there's a lot to talk around that. And an unfair advantage is something unique to you as an individual and unique to you as a company. It's a competitive edge. It's an upper hand. And you got to have that in this day and age. There's so much noise out there. There's so much competition out there. It's super tough to be able to break through that noise. Please feel free to pre-order the book. It's out in January 2020. I'm super proud of this. It's taken me 4 years to write this damn thing with a co-author. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, get onto the website. And I just, this morning, got an email from my publisher saying that they're going to translate it into complex and simplified Chinese. So it's going to go in China. And I hope you've enjoyed some of my lessons. And I'm going to be around for a couple of hours if anyone's got any questions. And I'm sure I'll take some questions now as well. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for kind of such an insightful presentation. What kind of struck me, and something that I also kind of believe in, is getting back to what marketing has always been about. You know, I keep saying marketing hasn't changed in 100 years, right? It's getting back to kind of what it's about, really, more than anything. Yeah. I'm gonna ask the first question, if that's all right. What's the biggest failure you've had?
Yes. So we took £1 million to do a TV campaign, and I'm a growth marketing, metric-driven, performance-based guy. And the CEO was like, Ash, we need to do a TV campaign. I was like, no, we don't. Give me the money, I'll do something else. It's like, no, we need to do a TV campaign. And I was like, okay. So £1 million, £300,000 production, create this belly and brain concept, and we decided to go big time, and we took a slot with the X Factor. We're like, going to go for this. Got it. Spent £350,000 building this production, buying the slot, and the advert went out, and it was amazing. The traffic went through the roof. And my BlackBerry, I had a BlackBerry in those days, was pinging. Congratulations, Ash, on your first TV campaign. It's pinging. And all of a sudden it went ping, 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 ping. I was like, oh, what's happened? Shit, our website went down. Our website went down, it crashed. I'm holding my head, pressing refresh, talking to the IT guy going, Ash, stop pressing refresh, it makes no difference. We didn't really scale our infrastructure. We didn't know that TV would have such an impact on the business. And we messed up. But we had a blessing in disguise with that one, actually. We did a campaign on a Thursday night, or Wednesday, I think it was, a midweek type of campaign it was. And we did it at quite late in the day. And what we realized was that most people make a decision to eat their dinner at 4 or 5 o'clock, not at 7:20. By then, they'd already eaten. So what we had is a lot of people going to the website to check it out. But then on that Saturday, the weekend coming, we had the best orders. We got our website back up and running with the best orders ever. We broke records across the board. Because people were looking at it just to see what it's like, and then let's try it out on the weekend because takeaways are like a treat. And we learned very quickly from that. So the mistake there was scale your infrastructure to get ready. Now you can do that with AWS and all sorts. But also, the customer experience was really bad. I mean, can you imagine? The whole website went down. So existing customers couldn't see it. No orders, 0 orders that day, right? That night. Well, we had a few, but it stopped about 7:30. So that's a big lesson. So get your infrastructure right. And also, the other lesson we learned is promote and do the advertising campaign earlier in the day when people are making the food buying decision.
It's really interesting. I gave my business partner a bit of a smile, actually, when you told that story, because I spent 10 years at a company called Rant and Rave, and we ended up on This Morning, and exactly the same thing happened. Our website could not handle it. Yeah. So yeah, get your infrastructure right. It's so important. But yeah, let's open it up to the audience. Has anyone got a question for Ash? He's given me lots to think about. I think Jerry at the back there.
Thanks, Yanis. Good morning. Thanks very much, Ash. Really interesting. I'm interested in the juxtaposition between the marketing and the customer experience. So you're investing a lot of money, time, and effort in creating a brand. Mm-hmm. The delivery of that expectation you created is, to a large extent, in the hands of your restaurant franchises. So companies may not share the same values. Now, how would you make sure that they can deliver on your promise, if that makes sense?
Good question. I had a phone call once to the office. Guy called up and goes, "Ash, your chicken tikka masala's got too much salt in it." I was like, "Really? This is just it? Yeah, your chicken tikka masala is really bad, and the chutneys, I told her I wanted a mint." And I was like, "What?" So he got through to me somehow, right? And they actually thought that they were ordering from Just Eat restaurant. Oh, it's kind of funny, right? Look, there's a challenge with any place where you have a marketplace. And the way to overcome that challenge was, number one, to create trust and credibility. And number two is that when we first started to get our restaurants on board, we only went for the top restaurants in the areas. We went to get the top restaurants in the areas with good reviews already. On top of that, we layered a review system so that if there was a bad experience, then that will be rated poorly, and we'll actually go back to the restaurant. I'll either deal with the restaurant, take it off their statement, refund the customer directly, and give them a bollocking to say, "Hey, you need to improve," right? In the early days, it's really challenging because we were just starting out, right? But as we became a stronger brand, and as restaurants realized, John sitting here with his fish and chip shop, and then Amjad over there has got a Just Eat logo, I've got a Just Eat logo, someone else has got a Just Eat logo, the competition started, right? And people need to order from a restaurant that they feel comfortable with. The biggest challenge was actually less so the food, it was more the delivery logistics, especially at peak times. I think this is a challenge for every business. I had this challenge in my company called Washplus, which is a laundry business. The peak times and the traffic challenges and the delays. So we have a massive customer care team now. I think there's 600 people sitting in Bournemouth right now dealing with customer care. We had live chat. We had SMS notifications, managing that system, that process. And I think it's managing the expectation of the customer. So the real challenge was mainly to do with the delivery and the logistics. And people are understanding if there's snow, if there's an accident, they can deal with that as long as the food's not too cold. I think the challenge on the food quality, direct rated to the restaurant. If it's very poor, then they get a poor rating, and they actually go off our system. And so we actually take them off until they can sort that issue out. Oh, the chef's not in town or something's happened. We switch them off. So the way to alleviate that was to get the better restaurants on board in the first place. And then there's a whole other bunch of other restaurants coming on as well. And now the issue has become less so an issue challenge because everyone's using Uber Eats and Deliveroo and Just Eat. So the restaurants are used to the whole process. They understand it now.
That's wonderful.